Anyways, good evening. My name is Chad. I'm with Destination Home. And I'm super grateful to be here amongst all of you. You are my people. And this is kind of a culmination of a lot of different work, both just for this event, but year over year, for us at Destination Home to build power for people with lived experience. We kind of started that journey not even really knowing what that meant. But what we did was we got some folks with lived experience together around the table and just started talking. And I say that to say it's as easy as that, right? If you're struggling to figure out where to go. And I think the work can take us in many different places. So I just wanted to say a super big thank you to the NCH team for inspiring us to do this with them, for helping us all along the way. To my own team, who's been amazing and who've been here throughout the entire event, tirelessly working during the event and all the way leading up to it at Destination Home. To the Marriott folks who are taking care of us. The food has been awesome. So anyway, I'm just here mostly to make some announcements for the evening. But I just wanted to say just, how humbled and grateful I am to be here. I've heard so many amazing things. What I love about this conference so much so far, compared to the other conferences that I've been to recently, is that it's just real. We're talking about both the successes and the struggles. Just a quick kind of shout out to the Lived Experience Coalition that I just heard about. That's up in, I believe, King County, Washington's gallery. They were just, they took us through their journey about the initial phase where everyone was like, woohoo, lived experience. And then the phase where they actually got to dig in and be partners at the table, but then they started to realize how much of a struggle this work is and how much it's about power. And people don't give up power easily. So that's why we're all here together to figure out how to break through together.
Everyone, my name is Elder Roosevelt McQuarter, and I am with the Washington State Living Experience Coalition out of Seattle, Washington. And we're here to bring a presentation called From Being on the Menu to Being at the Table and Beyond. It covers a lot of areas in which we've had to encompass and deal with while we've been working in King County, Washington over the last couple of years. It goes back a little bit further, but we'll get started I'm going to introduce I'll let the others introduce themselves who are on my panel, which is Ms. Courtney Love.
Hello, my name is Courtney Love. I like to say I'm the other Courtney Love. I'm Director of State and Local Advocacy for the Lived Experience Coalition, but really, titles are going to reinforce white supremacy, and so a lot of us like to say we're organizers. I'm Zanita McQuarter. I'm a community organizer and on the Lived Experience Coalition. I also run a couple of permanent supportive housing programs, and I'm the COC for the Snohomish County.
I'm Kawana Hughes. I'm a community organizer with the LEC, and I also have like Meals on Wheels for the homeless type thing.
And
Thank you, Brother Roosevelt. My name is LaMont, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm also with the LEC as a community organizer.
thank you. Okay, our organization always starts what we do with the grounding principles of how we operate. And we always like to share what our organization is about, but I think to set it up, we're going to just get grounded in what we like to bring one of the best poets that I know to ground us in something.
Tears well in her eyes as she silently cries on the inside, while dreaming of being inside her own place to call home. Seems like no matter how hard she tries, She still remains on the outside looking in, trying to find her way in, 4 walls, a small hall, a room or two, anything will do, as long as she can come home when the day is through. But she's caught between a rock and a hard place. Government says she makes too much to get an affordable place, but she doesn't make enough to make market rent, so her time is spent on the city cement attempting to make $1 out of 50 cents. But her story is not one of a kind. Unfortunately, this is the reality of so many in today's society, working their fingers from flesh to bone and still unable to afford a place to call home. Streets and tents filled with working people who can't afford to pay rent, while the media portrays all homeless people as mentally disabled and financially unstable, when it's really the government that's making it so that we are financially unable to afford food and rent. Every dollar earned is another $2 spent. There's no stability in the ability to get ahead, so this is just another dream in deferment. Having a secure place to be is a necessity, but they don't hear me or you because they can't relate to what we're going through. We vote them in thinking changes will begin, but we're mistaken. They've taken us for granted and never planted the seeds that our communities need in order to grow, or made the changes necessary to show the world that we are superpowered, leaving no one unfed and everyone that wants one a home and a bed. So many families are having to choose between an overpriced place to stay or the necessities needed to get through the day. Making housing affordable is the only way, but we're running out of life's tokens to play. Housing costs are consuming up to 80% of our pay. All it takes is 1 or 2 missing paychecks, and the basic need of housing stability is in jeopardy. And for lawmakers writing and signing bills for creating housing stability, this is just a formality. But the effects of its absence is a reality for most American families. But you don't hear me though. So many looking for a way out so that they can get in, but the way the housing market is set up, it's like a merry-go-round, spinning you around again and again and again, and just when you think it's time to get off the ride, you realize the ride has stopped, but you're still spinning. So it's like a vicious cycle, like an engine running idle. We aren't going anywhere. We have to be the change that we want to see. We have to fight for housing affordability because we are the community.
And that is how we get started. Also, every meeting that we always do a mission statement. For those who aren't part of the LEC, I would just like to encourage you today to be part of the LEC. And our website or our email address is wearelec.org. So I'm gonna ask y'all to get with us in this meeting right now. And who are we?
LEC.
Who are we?
LEC.
Who are we?
LEC.
We're all community in there. We all are sharing the same story, the same stuff that we have to do in order to try to affect change in our own communities. Our mission statement reads as this: the Lived Experience Coalition is a diverse, multi-generational community who are coming together to lift each other up, heal individually and collectively, advocate for ourselves and others, and advance racial and social justice. We honor the we honor the diverse cultures and beliefs of our members. We treat the spaces where we gather as sacred places where no one is thrown away, where everyone is safe, and where everyone belongs, including children, youth, families, and individual adults. We work beyond oppressive structures by unifying our voices, speaking truth to power, and working together to dismantle multi-system barriers impacting people who are experiencing homelessness and involvement in the carceral legal system, facing unmet behavioral health needs, and/or fleeing violence or emotional psychological victimization. I think that encompasses a lot, and it brings the community together, understanding that we all have the same shared dreams and beliefs and that mission can be continually worked on, and we can do it together. We also acknowledge the fact that labor is really not really talked about. We talk about it because there's issues in which we always have to deal with in our communities, no matter where we are, that has everything to do with how this country is operating. So we want to keep folks understanding that we must recognize that much of what we know of the United States today, including its culture, economic growth, and development through history and across time, has been made possible by the forced labor of enslaved Africans who suffered the horror of transatlantic trafficking of their people and chattel slavery, which has stripped generations of wealth from African Americans. This country was built on the exploitation of Asian labor, particularly Chinese labor that built the railroads, which sparked riots that led to the forced expulsion of Chinese people in Tacoma, Seattle, and beyond. Additionally, our country continues to exploit the labor of Latino workers who pay billions into Social Security, but will never benefit from it. We are indebted to our BIPOC ancestors' labor and sacrifice, which has historically continued to be underemployed and overlooked, often working multiple jobs to make ends meet, and we must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that can be still felt and witnessed today. Who we are. The LEC was formed back in 2018 by a small group of folks who turned into be a large group of folks. But they were getting together, understanding that unsheltered homelessness was growing in leaps and bounds over the previous years, and attempts have been made in King County and other areas to address it. 10-year plan here, 10-year plan there, not going anywhere. And then the rising housing costs following the previous administration before Biden, you started to see that people were getting kicked out of houses more. You were seeing more unsheltered homelessness from families, children, forced into going to shelters and stuff because of the rising rents and no supports for that particular piece. And so we started forming, getting together, large groups, and we met in this church where we had the largest amount of folks who were representing folks of lived experience. First time they were trying to hear it, and we pulled together, along with this man here and a couple others, who got together with public leaders, elected officials, and they had to craft a new way to approach unsheltered homelessness in King County. And so they wanted to go regional. And so we decided that we're gonna have to make sure that we do this better than anyone else, and we're gonna bring the voices of lived experience to the table, and they help craft what we call the theory of change, which I think most of us here are operating in that manner now since HUD has mandated that. But it just simply means that you can't get to the root of no problems if you're not calling on the people who are most affected to be at the table to help craft those decisions. And we call it the theory of change. So we don't have it written out here, but it just means that without us, there is not us. What's that phrase?
Nothing about us without us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nothing about us without us.
Okay, throughout the course of that, we were working with the King County government, trying to get them to understand, and we're doing trainings now. And the root of what we do is an anti-racist posture. We had a CEO that put that in the newspaper. We are anti-racist government organizations up top. And we got, if you look at demographics of Seattle, King County, Washington State, you know that the population of Black and brown and indigenous is not that high.
Higher than Minnesota.
So we understand what you got to go through. In our case here, we wanted to make sure that by bringing them to the table and by us helping to form that government organization, which Mr. Whitehead spoke to earlier this morning about, we were the first in the nation to be fully funded to do the work of helping to craft that stuff, and we were put on boards, starting with the implementation board, and then the governing board, which I'm still a member of. But it didn't start with me though. It started with my daughter. And she was when they first got the IN laid, we all in, hey, we got the seats at the table at the board. we had to start understanding who was on those boards with us. And there were a bunch of elected officials who didn't really, you know how elected officials operate. Interlocal agreement, I'm sorry. And that is between government agencies and whatever they're setting up to do this work for this particular period of time. And so you got your name and everything that you're supposed to be doing, and it's listed down, and the roles and responsibilities and those things. And so we got to that point, and we started to see members on that governing board, which were, we'll get to that later, but I won't spend too much time because we don't have much time. But she was the first one who told one of the elected officials, I won't name his political affiliation, but he's sitting on the board to try to end unsheltered homelessness, and he don't believe in helping. He don't believe in it. Well, we got to get these folks this up. So she just questioned him and did some things and got him kicked off the board. So anyway, as we move forward, our main focus was to get those folks trained who call themselves doing the work. I don't care where they're coming from. You're going to have to understand that if you don't understand your own racial oppressions and or superiority as it's being played out, and no matter who you're talking to, you're still going to have to find, you're going to have problems with the people who are living experience. Because we ain't going for that. Yeah. So subsequently, we got through the part that it got more difficult as we were training all those, not just elected officials, but all the staff for King County Regional Homelessness Authority to go through undoing institutional racism. That is the most high level of instruction to teach folks about internal racial oppression and how it plays out everywhere we go. And every boardroom, every stuff, individual. So it's called, the onus of this is to put it on the individual. You need to know what you're bringing to the table. If it's something that's going to distract or harm, especially if you not knowing your internal racial, I'll say for my European descent folks, superiority, it manifests itself in ways in which become destructive over a period of time. That training became very helpful. And then the pushback started to come. We're getting more stuff because this is still a slow moving thing, and now politics wants to make it go fast. Oh, you better house 1,000 people in a year. All these things to which you put that kind of onus on someone else, you know you're going to spend more time. It takes a lot more time to do that. But that's the pressure they put on us because now they had to address unsheltered homelessness from an anti-racist posture, which also led into root causes. That's a bad word to the folks today. When we get to the beyond part, you'll understand what I'm saying. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but in the midst of that, we had our own fiscal sponsor that was sponsoring us because we were just a young organization. And they were doing our work in order for us to be stood up to get that money from the government. And we had some conversations about it. Didn't take that long before we saying, oh, hell no. We're going to have to become our own 501c3. Because they weren't going to be doing the work for us in the manner in which we were going to be able to really benefit from it and spread that and do the work in which we set ourselves up to do. So by the time we became a 501c3, that was December 2022. We've been moving forward. Things have happened in between there. That has caused, us to have this being from the menu to the table. Now, I think everyone knows what it means to be on the menu. We're all on the menu. I don't care how we go about this business. Well, because you will be tokenized as that, we got that over here. We got one over here. We got one over here. And it doesn't serve the purpose because they're not going to recognize that one voice. So we have to be collaborative in our efforts. Once again, we're just a Black, Brown, and Indigenous-led multicultural, multi-generational coalition of folks who are living living experience. And that's what gives us the power to do that, because at the height of what we were doing, we had over 300 members, co-conspirators, partners and co-conspirators that helped us to craft this, that had us all over the newspaper. And yeah, that was bad. It's still the piece in which we're talking about is the most important part, is that we were at the table. We are still at the table. We have the largest, highest concentration of lived experience or living experience on our continuum of care board, and that still withstands, it still holds today. The other two pieces in which myself and Dr. Green are on the governing board, which oversees all the other work that the implementation board does. They're trying to dismantle it. They've kicked us off. Matter of fact, they put a parameter saying, oh, we hire the next ones from these different regions of lived experience, because we had 3 people on the board, 3 seats. And now they say, well, the lived experience seats will have to have a college education, will have to have run a business, will have to show that they've led a group of folks. Just because you have the name of lived experience on your title, which is, who's going to get on that board? At any rate, that's where we find ourselves now.
Hey, you better love it. Love it all over. So anti-racism and anti-oppression are at the core of the Lived Experience Coalition. Our Bias Forest Coalition aligns with the anti-racist, anti-oppressive principles of the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. They are our teachers. We honor them. And our quote of the day is, those closest to the problem are closest to solution, but furthest from the power and the resources. So these are components of anti-racism, anti-oppression that we center and we really work on manifesting in ourselves and in others. Analyzing power. I like to say power analysis, but it sounds a little bougie. But it is one of my favorite things. Oftentimes when I go to DEI trainings, I'm waiting for the power analysis part of it, and it is often absent. And I have to say, the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond pushed me to be a better person, and I've been accessing this kind of training since I was 12, and I'm 47, so it's a timeline, and it should be embarrassing to DEI classes that can't push people into being better people. We develop leadership amongst us. We bring education, critical analysis, critical thinking to our members. Gatekeeping. We're all gatekeepers, but are we liberated gatekeepers? Are we holding the doors open for those who are coming up with us? Identifying and analyzing manifestation. Oh, and also go back to gatekeeping for a moment. Are we protecting our people from abusive power? Right? Are we preparing our people to sit at those boards with people who will diminish us, who will disregard us? So that's also part of gatekeeping, making sure people are prepared to be there and not setting them up for pain and trauma and reliving it. So then identifying and analyzing manifestations of racism. I hear from people who have lived in the South and in the North, people of color, who talk about obvious racism versus less obvious racism, and it is easier to identify the obvious stuff. Yeah. Microaggressions are really hard to point at. Hey, that was racist. Oh, I didn't hear the N-word. Oh, okay. Right. Then it must not have been racist. Learning from history. That is vital, whether it be history stretching back to the 1600s or the history of 3 weeks ago when they said some bullshit. Yeah. A pardon for anybody. I'm a little. I have a broken filter. And maintaining accountability. Can we hold those people in power accountable every freaking week? Can we do that? Also, can we handle being held accountable? Do we know how to engage with people who call us in? Right? So like this, all these things are a two-way street, but the dynamic is different and it's valuable to discuss. The networking. We have a member of our community who talks about, he's indigenous, and he talks about maintaining the net. You can't catch fish if your net isn't maintained. And also, you have to have a net that works. And that's networking, right? And you throw your net out and it's big and wide, and then you pull it all together to get your catch, right? So networking is not just socializing in the hallways, which I really love. Someone bought me a drink, it was lovely. So I really enjoy networking, but it's more than that, right? It's more than that. And then shared culture. part of the LEC, today we started with a culture share, grounding. We often wrap our meetings with a culture share, and we bring our whole selves, and like the most of America, there is a majority Christian, but there are plenty of members in our space. We have Islam represented, we have, every now and again, we have some Buddhism. I was raised Lutheran, but I more identify as pagan these days. But we don't have a culture of door knocking to proselytize, so I'm like, so I don't bring a lot of myself, but every now and again, I find something that resonates with me, and then I'm able to share. Undoing internalized racial and other forms of oppression. For me, it's undoing internalized racial superiority, right? So it's where you're at. And then acknowledging colorism, one person can hold both, depending on which way they're facing, right? I believe you talked to this earlier this morning, right? We all learn and share similar things. Thank you for helping be one of the people who make this space.
I think the people listen to.
That's right.
That's right.
And then undoing racism and other forms of oppression, ableism, sexism, all the isms. And then also, the more isms, the more separation. How do we de-silo isms, right? And bring us all together. We're all fighting oppression. We can acknowledge the different oppressions, but we all have to fight together despite the oppression. And then I recommend that we reverse these, so I'm going to read them backwards. Core roles of support, to support people with lived and living experience to end homelessness. Create spaces for collective healing and internalized oppressions or superiorities, and for collective action towards our liberation. Once we've done that, we can build our cultural, social, economic, and political community power through principled and accountable relationships with our unhoused neighbors. These are some of my favorite words, principled and accountable relationships. I never heard these terms in white spaces. I was like, yeah, I know you, and you know me, that's good. But what's a principled and accountable relationship like? And I'm still learning. I don't know how to express it, but I know it when I see it. I know it when I'm participating in it. I know it when it's absent. So then, once we've done all this, we've got principled and accountable relationships. We're creating spaces for collective healing and collective actions. Now we know what to advocate for. What our community decided. This is the equitable and community-centered system change we're advocating for. Nobody does this, nobody in the LEC does this without forming a collective idea about what we're looking for and working towards. So when I come to spaces and I say, the lived experience, we support this, they know I'm not speaking as an individualized, tokenized person with lived experience. I come with a crowd behind me. I come validated by my community. And in doing so, we work with system partners to end homelessness. And we get to hold them accountable if they are pretending to be in principled relationships with us. Yes. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I get to do the amazing piece of talking about all of the exciting news articles. Literally, before we first started, as we were starting, there were some amazing great articles. Lived experience, we helped set up the Homelessness Authority and the interlocal agreement, so everybody's on the theory of change, everybody is coming along with us. Our plan to fix homelessness. Do they really believe in us? Do they, can they trust us to make good decisions? Sorry, I'm not used to talking on microphones. I just have a lot of voice. Homelessness advocates find red flags in the proposed charter amendment. They didn't realize we were smart as they thought, homelessness, you couldn't possibly make a good decision. But as we are, looking into things just like I did, I was like, Mr. Sir, you said you would dismantle this whole thing, what more vote? and he didn't expect that I'd actually read into things or listen to things. So what they wanted us to do was come sit at the table to tokenize, just to be that name, say, oh, we have lived experience, they co-signed on this. No, we don't. None of it's going to be harmful. And so that's what we began to do, was educate our folks. So these amazing, amazing headlines as the government began to fight against us. So what we found out was the system is set up to protect itself. So we've got folks coming to make sure there are better outcomes for our folks, to actually listen to the folks that are most impacted. They real quick called it the HUD TA. I was just saying, I sure did tell somebody from Los Angeles, you need to get him away from my desk. Because his experience in some HUD TA stuff, disaster response. Let's talk about that. People that own homes. People that, we waited for our insurance check to come because our home that was made of bricks has blown away. He said, well, I had an encampment of 5 tents that flooded. I said, 5 tents? Please get him from my desk, because you're telling me that these folks that are right now, it was snowing. I wanted to bring in folks from the street. We had gotten a grant. The Lived Experience Coalition got a grant from FEMA, from the United Way. So they were like, no, because we've got to make sure these folks at the table, they're going to feel some type of way. You bringing people in, and we haven't spoken to anybody. Well, who are we supposed to speak to? I'm speaking to you, and these folks are cold outside. So, long story short, I did some Underground Railroad stuff.
Yeah.
We did bring the people inside. But this is what happened. When we bring people inside, and we as a people are not as organized, and we are not checking our checks and balances, we were bringing people inside, but we were bringing too many people inside at one time. And so I actually ended up working for the government at this time. So I created the Systems Advocate Navigation Peer Team. So what we did was bring folks tent to home. We are wrapping around all the services, talking about stability. We stably brought in a little less than 500 people in 10 months. Stably housed. Meeting people where they are, fighting the system. So what happened was, amongst all that, people were spent, yes, we brought people in. But it also meant many people lost their jobs. My systems advocate team, we all ended up going away, but you know what happened before we went away? They took my whole entire program, and then you know what they're doing now? They contracted out to everywhere else. Stability, you need stability. People need to know that you can't just bring people inside and not give them the tools that they need to sustainably keep that. So now all of these things that we did, we spent all of this time, now it's going on all over. So
are they getting paid the same as the systems advocates?
No, of course not. We felt being paid a working living wage. All of this knowledge that I've gained all of these years, I started the housing program, built that up, now that's, been housed many, many people, all of these things, but they feel that people should still be making less than market value, still struggling every single day, so that's what they do, is like contract it out. But they would think that I went to college and had a degree, so now I'm teaching all the directors, so. It just shows you, if you continue to push, every day I start a meeting when I'm going against my leadership. I'm probably going to lose my job today, but I'm going to advocate for the people in every single space that I'm in, so continuing to call out the harm that is.
So folks have been sharing a lot about the history and the LEC start and all of that, right? It's been a lot. Wow, it's just like so much has happened just in the past 2 years. And so we took Bruce Tuckman's stages of group development, and we're applying this kind of the stages of partnership development to kind of show where we were at from the beginning stage and kind of developmentally what happens. Now, the storyline may be different in Seattle and King County, but you find the same thing in, Illinois, California, wherever we go. The dramas, the actors, the stories are different, but you'll see the same core underlying dynamic. And that's why I love this conference, because when we come here and you talk to different people, you're like, wow, is that what happened in Tiffany? And I listen to Tiffany's stories and struggles, I'm like, that's what we're experiencing. And so it's the same thing. So we're trying to distill this. So with the LEC, we actually helped with many other community partners to advocate for the King County Regional Homeless Authority to exist, right? And the King County Regional Homeless Authority was literally designed by community most impacted alongside system partners. What the City Council and County Council passed was just a shell of what communities said that they wanted, right? And they've completely begun to erode that. But in this beginning phase, lived experience. We want to have lived experience at the table. So we call this the celebration and tokenization phase, right? Because HUD is now mandating stuff, so lived experience is now the flavor of the month. We need lived experience and people be so proud. We have lived experience experts at the table, right? Because it looks good. And especially in progressive Northwest, it's very progressive with the Northwest, right? So the way that racism and oppression shows up, it's so nice and sweet, right? You gotta be really skilled to catch it there in the Northwest, right? So we were being celebrated, right? That any new CEO or chief hired at the King County Regional Homeless Authority must go through the Lived Experience Coalition. And we had seats at all the tables, and we were the first COC in the nation to be 100% people with lived experience. 100%. And that was the work of not just the Lived Experience Coalition, but all our partners and allies and service providers. And then we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors and organizations that fought before us too. So the celebration and tokenization phase, it's very exciting. Right? We get contracts and stipends, and we're like, and you get money, you get a stipend, you get a stipend. We need to raise them stipends, and we're not trying to be these horrible gatekeepers, right? So it's beautiful. We got people at all the tables, but we're doing our political education. We raising our consciousness. Sometimes we'll be up on a Google Meets call till 12 or 1 a.m. reading this stuff and trying to understand and have literacy moments. So now, our consciousness is raising. Our unhoused neighbors, us all collectively. So now when we come into this table, we're like, we're not trying to be all belligerent, but we're asking questions. Why are they asking them kind of questions? What do they know about those kinds of questions? And then they would give us, these very elaborate, fancy answers. But like A and B don't add up. So for the point in time count, they brought us in as a partner in the point in time count. The Lived Experience Coalition is going to co-author the point in time count. And we're doing this in collaboration of partner. We love partnership, and we love principled and accountable partnerships. And so we're supposed to help design the whole point in time count and all that stuff. And so they do the analysis, but they don't let us see the report. So we got to beg and scrape to see the report before it comes out, right? And so they show us the report. They said, could you be so kind as to show us the math on how you came up with this, right? Because we've been doing our we not know, folks that but they really judge us, right? The prejudice and the stigma, the racism, the ableism, all of that wrapped in there, right? And so we said, you know what, if you're not going to show us, after asking for what was it, we asked for 7 or 8 months?
Yeah.
We said, and we were being so kind and polite. We said, if we're a partner in this, and our name is going to be on this, and we haven't seen the mathematics of this, could you be so kind as to remove our name?
Yes.
So then they sent the guy, the researcher, and all of that to the meeting, et cetera. And that was a meeting that went awry. He ended up crying back to the CEO of the leader and said that we called him a white supremacist and all this. We were not belligerent, but then the LEC, we got labeled as aggressive, and when system partners come to our meetings, they become traumatized, right? So all of that. And so that's when you now get into the storming part, right? And it's not who we are and how we're showing up, but the system has done these types of things. And we don't want to pick the system partners and demonize them, because they're working under pressures and constraints that cause these perverse outcomes, right? They're trying to manipulate the data so that they can show that they're getting improvement because the public is growing in compassion fatigue. In order for them to get more funding, they gotta make things look good, right? So even the system partners is working under a hot mess. And then the mayor and these other county executives, they got the business community that want things cleaned up, and they're putting money into their campaign, and they're acting as a pressure and a hot mess, right? And so here we are, finally at the table, finally seeing and understanding what's going on, and it's like, OMG. Right? Now, what happens is then they try to shut you up. And the first thing they do is cut your funding. That's the first disorganizing strategy. They're going to cut your funding, right? And they utilize the hoteling program to then demonize the LEC. The Ombuds program that we started, the Youth Action Board, they pulled the Youth Action Board from us, the Ombuds program and the contracts for that, everything. And then they did audits and all of this craziness and stuff, right? It was intentional to disorganize the LEC. And if you go to Seattle Times, LEC and Seattle Times, you could read some of these articles and things that were not true. Now this is how far the system partners went. And the Seattle Times will not publish these things because Project Homeless Connect is funded by philanthropy, right? And in our region, we have a lot of billionaire philanthropy that are concentrated in King County. You talk about Balmer, Gates, Camden, all of that, right? And they want King County Regional Homeless Authority to succeed. And of course, they have their own agenda. Because philanthropy is really business. And instead of paying their taxes, they create a foundation so they can hire and do all these things, and they can choose, but it's really our money, right? Yes. But they do a lot of weird things. And so you've got philanthropy as a major partner, you've got the elected officials, right? And you got the system partners, right? All together. And so when this hoteling stuff collapsed, they did an audit. Because we were building changes with our fiscal sponsor, they didn't do any of the proper accounting and stuff. We didn't control any of our money, right? And it was a very cold winter. We had a lot of our unhoused neighbors that died. So I don't regret those people getting housing, right? The number of people that died that winter. And so they said, let's do the audit. And LEC were like, yes, let's do the audit. And this is going to justify us. It's going to show building changes, how they were operating. It's going to show some of these system partners and all of them how they were operating. Do you know what they did? They did the audit. Philanthropy hired someone to do the audit. And then they intentionally released the audit, the draft audit that hadn't gone through the fact finding. It got leaked to the media. It wasn't until 8 months later when some staff at ERN did a whistleblowing. And one of the things they whistleblowed about is that, you know what happens in the dark comes to the light? The staff whistleblowed that the Camden Foundation had ERN intentionally released the audit to the media to protect King County Regional Homeless Authority. Now, the staff that did the whistleblowing, they had documentation receipts, they sent us to Seattle Times and all of that. Do you know that that's never been published? Never been published, right? And so you can begin to see how this stuff gets really nasty. It gets really, and I'm not trying to demonize philanthropy and all of this. We're sharing this as a case study because it's real. It's real. And when your lived experience group and power builds power and builds clarity at these tables, the system is going to push back. Yes, Suzette.
So I have been reading some of the articles because I'm on Facebook with people from LA that moved to Seattle to start the
system advocates.
Yeah. So and I was wondering why everybody was quiet and people were retiring and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. Because when people were going over there, like it was like, you know, boom, boom, boom. But anyway, so so this is part of the systemic inequality that bothers me because you talking about the funding and but people are making $500,000,
Yes.
million, seven-figure
Yes.
up
Yes.
in
Right.
there. We talking about philanthropy. We think that we talking about Silicon Valley.
Right.
So people get to retire at really nice young
Yes,
ages.
yes.
Our asses are still trying to get a foot in the door, right?
Yes.
You feel me?
All of that.
And so this is the irony though, because and I don't know how all these people from LA ended up, and these people I know quite well, moving and getting the jobs. But see, what I want you to understand is that when we talk about the people with lived expertise, nobody says, hey, Suzette, come over here, we need you over here to help develop this program too.
Yes.
Right.
So when we talk about the fact of, I talk about, we need a pathway to success.
Right.
I've been talking to Dr. V at Moss in regards to there needs to be a pathway to success for people living in permanent supportive housing. We can't talk about HUD guidelines of moving on, and yet we have not created a pathway for people to be able to move on.
There you go.
And instead we're penalizing them.
Yeah.
So we should be where I should be. Well, working with you in conjunction to help create that pathway to success, so that we can help pull people from Skid Row and Skid Row and all over the different. And it's not just about. We don't want just your entry level freaking effing job. I'm tired of being glass field where I got to get in and fit in. No, mofos. No, we deserve to have a right up there in the director level positions and everything. You know what I'm saying? And so this is also part of the pathology of what happens with the Suzette Shaw, who's now 60 years old and been a decade living in Skid Row after being misplaced there as a missing person, went from $1 million neighborhood to Skid Row because I was running my own goddamn programs. You understand me? I was the one who was out, but we're in silos. We as black women, we're in silos in these positions. And it's trauma, where it's a weathering. It's a weathering that happens to us.
Yes.
So when you show up, and my indigenous self show up, now you want to talk, now I'm in school right now. Now I told my psychologist at the Department of Mental Health, after I got in school as social work, studying community advocacy, social policy with a minor in organizational leadership development, double major, 4.0, 4.33 almost every week. I called out my white psychologist at DMH and I said, what I learned is that you have to take an oath, a Hippocratic oath.
Right.
You are supposed to be my advocate. That's the number one, is that you are supposed to be my advocate. Well, I teach all my clients how to advocate. I said, Dr. McIntosh, you should know me of all people. You don't need to teach me how to advocate for nothing.
Yes.
But when my indignant self shows up, you should know that's why. Because when Suzette was trying to be pleasant, and months and years trying to ask for your assistance, and you don't understand my trauma, see? Oh, but you're so articulate, Suzette. Oh, you're so intelligent, Suzette. But you don't understand why then today I'm living on disability at $635 freaking dollars a month. I can't qualify for no student loan because I got disability insurance. I can't. There's no pathway to success. You don't understand what it looks like and why that trauma is there because you only see me as that pathology. And all you're doing when you're creating these DEI and all this BS. So all you're doing is checking boxes. You're not trying to create equity in what we're doing. I had to send an email back to LA just earlier today, right before lunch, to call all of them out and tell them this is what. So when I'm talking about it, I'm naming what you're doing exactly right here.
Yes. Wow. That's powerful.
What did I say? Who are we?
LEC.
And so, thank you, Suzette. That was powerful. Thank you. And so, this decolonizing the system is really messy and painful work. And bringing the system partners along and educating them on their bias and being in principled and accountable relationship like Courtney, that's the big piece. That's the big piece. Having MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, getting things in writing, because people will forget. what they promise, right, is very critical. The system partners need to be willing to go through the training and the workshops so that they can be in this principled and accountable relationship. And so very rarely do you see systems making it to the high performing stage. Usually what happens, storming happens, and that becomes normalized, so it's just a low level toxicity humming in the background. So we think we're in norming, but we're really in storming, pretending to be in norming, and everything stays stagnant, right? The system and everything stays stagnant. We've got a new 5-year plan, a new 10-year plan, and people revolve, and we always starting from scratch over and over and over. And what we hope to get to is as a system where we're in that performing stage. And that's going to require deep authenticity, transparency, respect for people with lived experience, and system partners and people with lived experience share power in decision making. And that's how we can really get to systems transformation. So real quick, the Partnership for Zero was an initiative that Zanita and Roosevelt were talking about to bring people in. And Zanita mentioned how they HUD brought in a consultant, right? So this Partnership for Zero was designed by people with lived experience, most impacted. They put together a beautiful plan. So philanthropy and the system partners ran with it. Then they went and implemented it without people most experienced. They brought in an outside expert, and the whole thing collapsed. The whole thing collapsed. And then they want to say, they want to blame people with lived experience, right? And so this is some of the narrative. But when we look and we do an analysis of all these different initiatives that have failed, it wasn't the people with lived experience. We were the canary in the coal mine saying, this isn't going to work. This is not working like this. But they don't know how to partner. They don't know what shared decision-making and shared power and co-designing solutions and implementing and evaluating together. And I don't know why they're afraid of that, you know?
Because they like Congress.
Because we'll be right
Money,
back.
it's all for them, no sharing.
And so I know I'm running my mouth, but I think we're going to break this down a little bit here more. And I think, who's next?
I think you just went through this one here.
Yeah, I think,
Can I take a picture of that, please?
Yeah, what we're just saying real quick too is, so in the celebration and tokenization stage, these are some of the things that are going to be really key. Training and ongoing support to system partners on bias, power, privilege, and positionality dynamics. And training really isn't enough. There needs to be a mechanism where partners are reflecting on how well are we doing, right? And how do people with lived experience feel on these boards and so forth. Establishing group norms and goals and writing and revisiting them. And prioritizing activities that help people with lived experience and partners build trust and vulnerability. Don't just center our lived and living experience like we're a monkey in a zoo. Tell us what it's like, what is your lived and living experience like? Making a $400,000 paycheck, right? Off the backs of people who are homeless. And you are not in principled accountable relationship with anyone experiencing homelessness. You don't have one single unhoused neighbor that you know, but you're making $400,000. We can't give what we don't have, right? And so tell me about that lived and living experience too, right? And some of the challenges, we talked about being performative. A lot of power imbalances in the beginning. Hyper-professionalism, consultism, elitism, white supremacy culture, ableism, all of that is rampant. And we have to address any preconceived notions and biases around people with experience. So those are some of the things in that forming stage. When we go to the next one, right? Storming. So this is characterized by conflict and competition because the system is going to struggle to share power authentically. It's not going to know how to do it. I mean, in a way, we all innocent too. Even the system partners, right? Like people talk about, oh, how could the country elect Trump? Let's look in the mirror at our own inner Trump, right? It's a reflection of all of us. We need to face that, right? Face the reality. People want to say, oh, Trump is this and Trump is that and those people are that. But we look at our life and what ways are we being very individualistic, right? And unforgiving. In what ways are we being sexist or homophobic or whatever, right? So really, we all in this boat together. So the system doesn't know. So like Paulo Freire says in the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed, the power of the oppressed is the only power that can liberate both the oppressed and the oppressor.
Yes.
Right? Audre Lorde told us, right? Black feminists, that the oppressor looks to the oppressed to understand themselves. And so in this whole mess here, what happens too is that these disorganizing tactics, they're going to cut your funding. They will try to steal your people away sometimes. They will do strong arm tactics, like leave you off of emails, have a meeting, like with 24-hour public meeting notice. They got some tricks. We have seen it all, y'all. They'll accidentally leave me off the email, or different people off the email, or they will cancel because they know that the LEC and people like Tamara's not playing, and we got the whole community get ready to come out, the community is ready, we get ready to come in deep in public comment.
Right.
So you know what they do? We won't be having an implementation board. I don't think we're going to have a governance board meeting for the rest of the year. I kid you not. That's the type of tactics. Isn't that horrible?
That is.
Like they're supposed to do an open public meeting, a special hearing on stuff, and then they just switch it out. When the board previously voted, that they would have an open, because we said we didn't want no backroom meetings. Whatever hearing you got, let's do an open public meeting act. The public needs to be there to hear and to be a moral witness. So they've got a lot of administrative coordination. They abuse their administrative coordination and convening rule. They abuse their degrees as attorneys, and they will do all kinds of devil in the details. And here we're trying to work and feed our children and doing this, and these little municipalities, all of them popping up camping bands. So we're just all over the board, right? And they're sitting in their comfortable, air-conditioned office, crafting up strategies to do this kind of craziness. So be prepared for that. The devil's in the details. And so some of the activities having open and ongoing discussions about power dynamics, addressing these conflicts and disagreements through brave and courageous conversations, and constant modifying written agreements to reflect new learnings and commitment in writing, y'all. You gotta get it in writing. And some of the challenges is managing these conflicts constructively, ensuring that power is not consolidated by system partners and elected officials only, and navigating resistance from system partners and elected officials who may be unprepared to share power authentically. So that's the storming phase. So in the norming phase, anybody want to do norming, Courtney, Roosevelt? Okay.
When we talk about being in principal accountable relationships in the norming phase, I like to see this as me every single day, as I am. When I walk through the doors every single day, I'm accountable to those that I work for, which are my residents, which are those that are coming into the building after having a navigator who wasn't listening to them at all, and now all of a sudden they're at my PSH building and have no idea what is expected of them. And I came into an organization, I'll say, that is like nationally known, and everybody knows what they're doing in the name of the people. But when I'm sitting in a meeting and we're talking about people we're using in their unit and it was above the levels and now we're going to give them a 3-day and we're going to kick them out. But we didn't even talk about the part that these people have only been here less than 90 days. Did we tell them even the expectations? So now I'm sitting in a room with all of these people who are so committed. Oh my God, we told them. They said they weren't using, I said, did they really though? Like, I know, but if you're telling me somebody was not coherent or you had to wake them up, to me that's not informed consent. If you brought them in and you knew that, did you tell them, if you use, we're going to kick you out? Well, I did, but were they awake? I'm in a meeting, my first meeting, that we're kicking 11 people out. I'm like in tears, and they're like, are you okay? No, I'm not okay. We just caused so much harm and you guys are okay with this. This is, I thought the mission statement and core values was to do everything we can to keep people housed, not to do everything we can to kick them out. So being in spaces and being able to hold the people that are making those decisions accountable to those. I ended up stopping 3-day evictions, I'm just telling you right now. People did not get kicked out. They have now been, over and they ended up paying people. If you couldn't stay, hey, look, at least you can be somewhere for the winter. So it was a win over, time, but developing shared leadership models.
I think the PowerPoints are going to be on the app, but I know we ran out of time, so I'm so sorry too.
That's that white supremacy. Even though we got done.
I only got an hour and everybody else got 2.5 hours.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Queen, for just making sure that when we say we are in accountable relationships, we are really speaking truth to power and backing that up. It's okay to speak to those. Celebrating successes, always. Sustaining levels of engagement with those, continuously addressing and adapting to the changes, and ensuring that power remains sustained in your core principal values.
And I think that's it. Transformation. And so I know we're out of time, and I don't know if folks have any questions or comments that you want to make.
Well, I would just like to say that I think part of the thing is that you all have your coalition in Seattle, but I think that we need a combined national coalition. Seattle is going on in LA, is going on here. And see, this is how then we have to also get together then addressing, because when they're handing out these hundreds of millions and almost billions of dollars, and then they're taking away these huge salaries, and then nothing's changing. And we should all have our own home up in Malibu or wherever we want at this point. We should all be retiring as well. But I'm just saying, that's what we need to also be holding them accountable. When all of this money is coming out, we need to ensure that there's equity in how those dollars are being divvied up in our communities across the nation.
The last slide over here just describes who we are and how to get in touch with us. So, as we build this coalition nationally, here's a good place to start, right here on this screen right here. We all take a picture, whatever. So, stay connected and stay in this fight.
Wait, I want you guys to listen to a poem that I wrote. You're gonna really like this, actually, just really quickly. What about the old man and dog? I want this to okay, I just said. It's called The Journey. They start off as interns. We start off as homeless. We will work side by side, you as an intern, me as an advocate, in the community daily while in the thick of it. While you work on your college degree, you'll use my work as your feces, all while I labor for free. You'll climb the ladder, you'll move up the ranks, you'll become a member of the elite think tank. From a corner office with a view, you become a new label with an expert point of view. Unhoused will be lucky if we move from an SRO while still living in the heart of Skid Row. On equal footing, we'll both become community stakeholders, while you and the other 501c3s plan a community takeover. Skid Row, my home as I will come to know. You'll gain stature from being known as Becky to Miss Rebecca with her PhD. That's right, the expert girl now, who's earned her stripes right here in the hood pipe. You'll go on and get your master's while still in your laid-back habits. And then you'll get your PhD and be considered as the expert of me. My trauma will be merely labeled as drama. You're being considered for an appointment as a fellow, now you can barely say hello. We'll go from looking each other in the eyes to someone I no longer have to rely. Your title will get fancier, as we running into each other will get chancier. You'll travel more extensively. The few blocks around me is the most I'll probably see. This zip code will probably be the last I know. Here's probably where we'll live until we die, and God calls us home. That's the journey of you and me, separated by 3 degrees. Thank you.
We want to thank everyone for coming out here. for this presentation, and we are available anytime you want to reach us. We're here.